palace of Vera stood tall above the city, glowing under the twin suns. It was made of smooth white stone and blue crystal, reflecting the sky like water. Inside the palace, voices echoed through its wide halls. But in one quiet room, Princess Illyra sat alone near a window, watching the birds fly over the gardens. She was the only daughter of Empress Veril, ruler of the Galactic Union's strongest empire. Everyone in the empire knew her name, yet no one truly knew her heart. Her face was soft, her silver-blue skin smooth like porcelain, and her long dark hair fell like a shadow down her back. But in Veoran society, beauty was not what made a princess valuable. It was power, connections, and strength that counted. Illyra had none of that. She was not a warrior. She didn't lead battles or control fleets. Instead, she loved reading, painting, and listening to the wind. She had ideas about peace and unity, not conquest or pride. And because of this, no suitor wanted her. Every month, alien nobles came from distant planets. Tall warriors with bright armor, powerful leaders with glowing eyes, scholars with deep voices. They all visited Veera in hopes of marrying into royalty. But when they met Illyra, they passed her by. They wanted her mother's favor or the chance to command fleets. They didn't care about the quiet girl sitting in the corner at first. Illyra didn't mind. She didn't want a stranger to choose her just for a title. But after so many years of being ignored, she started to wonder if she would always be alone. Some nights she stood under the stars and whispered, "Is there no one who sees me for who I am?" Far away on a small space station near Earth's moon, a young human named Caleb was preparing for something big. He was one of the few humans selected for a new interspecies exchange program. The mission was simple: build friendly ties between different species. He had trained for months in alien customs, languages, and behavior. He wasn't the strongest or fastest in his group, but his teachers said he had something rare: empathy. Caleb didn't care about fame. He just wanted to see the universe, meet others, and maybe help build something better. When he got the final list of locations, his eyes stopped on one name: Veera. "That's the Empire planet," said his friend. "Isn't that risky?" Caleb shrugged. "Maybe, but I want to go there. They say it's beautiful and full of mystery." 2 weeks later, Caleb stood at the gates of the Imperial Palace. Dressed in a simple black uniform with a small Earth symbol, he felt small among the giant guards with their glowing staffs. The palace steps rose high like a mountain. When he reached the top, he took a deep breath. Inside, a welcome banquet was happening. Nobles and officials from many species filled the golden hall. Laughter, music, and the sound of crystal glasses filled the air. Caleb entered quietly. No one turned to look. No one offered him a seat. He moved to a corner and watched, unsure what to do. He didn't feel angry, just a little sad. He had trained for this, but he hadn't expected to feel so. Invisible. And then across the room, someone noticed him. Princess Illyra sat with her mother on a raised platform. Eyes scanned the room out of habit. They landed on the lone human standing near the wall, holding a cup and pretending not to feel out of place. Something about him made her pause. He didn't look powerful. He didn't try to show off. He just looked kind. Illyra leaned toward her mother and whispered, "May I greet the guest from Earth?" The Empress gave a small nod, surprised. "If you wish." Lyra stood and walked across the hall. Slowly, voices began to quiet. Eyes turned toward the princess, wondering where she was going. When they saw her stop beside the human, whispers started. Caleb looked up and blinked. The princess was standing in front of him. "You are from Earth?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. He nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. My name is Caleb." "May I join you for a moment?" she asked. He was too surprised to speak at first. Then he nodded quickly. "Of course." They stood side by side in the corner, talking about simple things. Earth's. Whether Vera's gardens. Caleb made her laugh once, and she smiled, not the practiced royal smile, but a real one. The hall stared in shock. No suitor had ever made the princess smile like that. After a while, Illyra said, "Thank you for speaking with me." "No," Caleb said. Thank you for seeing me." She looked at him for a moment longer, then returned to her seat. The night continued, but everything had changed. For the first time, someone had seen the human not as weak or low, but simply present. And for Illyra, someone had spoken to her not for gain, but with gentle honesty. And so the first thread of a new story was quietly woven between a lonely princess and a humble human who didn't fit in, yet felt just right. The next morning, the palace felt different to Illyra. The air seemed lighter, the sunlight warmer. She walked through the garden with a strange feeling in her chest, something soft and unfamiliar. All night she had thought about the human named Caleb. Not because he was strong or special, but because he was kind. No one had ever looked at her the way he did. Not with hunger for status, not with judgment, just curiosity and calm. Meanwhile, Caleb was guided to the guest wing of the palace. It was big, with golden walls and floating lights, but it felt too quiet. He stood at the window, looking down at the garden paths. Part of him wondered if yesterday had been a dream. Had the princess really come and spoken to him? Did she really smile at his words? A small knock broke his thoughts. When he opened the door, Palisade stood there. "Princess Illyra has invited you to visit the learning chamber," the aide said. "Me?" Caleb asked. The aide nodded. She says, "She wants to know more about Earth." A short while later, Caleb entered the learning chamber. It was a round room with glass walls that showed the sky and space beyond. Strange floating books circled slowly in the air, glowing with ancient light. In the center sat Illyra, reading something written in her own language. When she saw him, she smiled, not the royal smile, but the real one again. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for inviting me," he replied. She gestured for him to sit across from her. "Tell me something. Not about Earth's weapons or politics. Just something real." Caleb thought for a moment, then said, "When I was a child, my mom would take me to the park every Sunday. She'd pack a small lunch. We'd sit under the same tree every time. She said, even the same place gives new feelings when you're with someone you love." Illyra looked at him quietly. "That's beautiful." "Your turn," Caleb said gently. "Tell me something real about you." Deutsch hesitated. No one ever asked her that. Finally, she said, "I like storms. Not because they are loud or scary, but because they remind me that even the sky has emotions." They both smiled as the hours passed. Their conversation flowed like a slow river, soft, honest, peaceful. Caleb didn't try to impress her. Illyra didn't wear a mask. They were just two souls who saw something familiar in each other's silence. By the end of the visit, they didn't want to leave, but duty called. "I hope we can talk again," Caleb said as he stood. "We will," she promised. Rumors began to spread, guards whispered. Nobles scoffed. "Why is the princess meeting a human again and again?" they asked. Some called it weakness. Others called it rebellion. One bold noble even approached the empress. "Your Highness, the court is concerned. The princess is showing interest in a human. It may damage her image." The empress raised her hand to silence him. "I will speak with her." Later that night, Illyra was called to the empress's private chamber. She entered with steady steps. The empress, tall and wise, looked down at her daughter. "You have been seen with the human. Is it true you meet him often?" Illyra nodded. "Yes, mother. Why?" The empress asked, calm but firm. "Because he listens. He speaks from the heart. And for once, I do not feel like a tool, too." "Be used, I feel," human Illyra said softly. The empress stared at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Very well. But understand, your actions shape the future of our empire. Be sure of your heart." Illyra bowed her head. "I am, mother." A few days later, Caleb received another message. This time it wasn't just a visit, it was an invitation. "Princess Illyra requests your company for the annual Star Song Festival." Caleb had read about it. The Star Song was the most important night in Vieira. Every year people lit floating lights to honor memories and hopes. It was sacred. He dressed in the formal clothes gifted to him by the palace, soft silver robes with dark blue patterns. He looked simple, yet elegant. When he arrived at the garden temple, he saw Illyra waiting by the floating lake. She wore a gown made of soft light, her eyes glowing under the moons. Everyone stared, but she only looked at Caleb. "You came," she said. "Of course," he replied. "You asked." Together, they stepped onto the water bridge, where lights floated like stars. Each guest released one lantern into the sky. Elira handed Caleb a small crystal lamp. "Make a wish," she whispered. He thought for a moment, then released it. "What did you wish for?" she asked. He smiled. "To keep walking beside you." Her heart skipped. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "My wish was the same." That night, as lanterns filled the sky, something, invisible but powerful, changed. People saw them not just as a princess and a human, but as two souls standing side by side, equal, brave, and in the quiet corners of the palace. Voices began to tremble. "The human may not be a warrior," one noble said, "but he may be the only one who truly understands her," another replied. End of part 2. The palace halls were filled with loud voices the next morning. Banners were raised. Drums echoed through the city. It was the start of an ancient Vaoran tradition. The trials of the chosen. Every 100 cycles, suitors were invited to take part in special trials. It was meant to test not only strength, but also mind and heart. The winner would earn the right to stand beside the royal heir. This time, the winner would be chosen for Princess Elira. Nobles from across the galaxy arrived. Strong warriors with scarred arms, leaders with golden eyes, and heirs of powerful dynasties, all prepared to prove themselves. None of them saw Caleb as a real challenger. Most barely noticed him standing quietly among the crowd. "What's a human doing here?" One of the suitors laughed. "He's here to clean the training grounds." Others chuckled. Perhaps he got lost, but Elira didn't laugh. She stood beside her mother and watched in silence. When the trials were announced, her eyes searched the crowd. When they met Caleb's, something passed between them. A quiet strength. That evening, Caleb was called to a private meeting with an old palace advisor. "The trials are not easy," the advisor said. "Many will try to break you, not just in body, but in spirit. I didn't come here to win anyone's approval," Caleb said. "I came because she matters to me." The advisor looked at him for a long time, then gave a small smile. "Then perhaps you have already passed the first trial." The next day, the first challenge began. Trial 1. The Bridge of Blades. Each suitor had to cross a narrow path, suspended in air, lined with moving energy blades. Speed and balance were tested. The tall warrior from Kralt moved quickly, but lost focus and fell halfway. The noble from Zorith used a shield, but slipped on the final step. When it was Caleb's turn, whispers filled the air. "He won't make it 2 steps," someone said. But Caleb didn't rush. He studied the timing of. The blades moved with care and took each step like a dancer. Slow, steady, controlled, he reached the other side. No flare, no show. Just calm, focus. "Interesting," one judge muttered. Trial 2. The Room of Echoes. In this challenge, each suitor was placed in a chamber where their fears were whispered back to them, doubts, regrets, pain. It was a test of the mind. Some warriors shouted and punched the walls. Others begged to leave. Caleb sat still. The voice whispered, "You're not good enough. You don't belong here. She deserves someone greater." Caleb closed his eyes and said softly, "Maybe, but she chose to see me, and I'll never walk away from that." The chamber went quiet. He was allowed to leave. Elira, watching from behind a hidden screen, pressed her hand to her chest. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. Trial 3. The Test of Giving. Each suitor was shown a starving creature, a small, weak being from their homeworld, and given 1 loaf of sacred Vaoran bread. They were told, "You may keep this or feed the creature." Some nobles broke the bread in half. Some gave a bite, then took the rest. Caleb placed the full loaf before the creature and sat beside it. "We both need strength," he said. "I'll find mine another way." The judges said nothing, but they wrote silently on their scrolls. At the end of the week, the empress called a gathering in the moonlight garden. Lanterns hung from crystal trees. A soft wind carried the scent of Vaoran blossoms. The suitors stood in line, proud and tall. Caleb stood at the edge, quietly. 3 have reached the final trial, the empress announced. One of them is human. Gasps filled the air. One noble shouted, "This is a mistake. He is not one of us." Another added, "He has no army, no fleet, no noble blood." But the empress raised her hand. "He has passed every test without fail," she said. "Calmly, and tomorrow he will face the final trial before all of us." That night, Caleb sat alone in his room, staring at the stars. He felt the weight of everything: the eyes, the pressure, the doubt. A soft knock came. He opened the door to find Alira, wearing a simple robe. No crown, no guards. I had to see. "You," she said. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "I know," she replied, "but I couldn't sleep." They sat by the window. The stars above shimmered like distant hopes. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You don't have to." He looked at her. "I want to, not to win, not to impress anyone, but because when I first met you, I felt something true. I don't want to walk away from that." Alira's eyes filled with quiet emotion. "They don't understand you," she said. "Maybe not," Caleb replied. "But you do. That's enough." She reached out and held his hand for a moment. It was gentle, warm, and honest. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said, "you've already changed something in me." He smiled. "Then it's all worth it." The next morning, sun rose on the final trial. The mirror of the heart. A crystal pool was placed in the center of the court. Each suitor had to look into the water and speak their truest reason for wanting to stand beside the princess. The warrior from Zolth said, "To gain honor and bring our empires together." The noble from Shever said, "To rule beside her and strengthen the galaxy." Then Caleb stepped forward. He looked into the water. His reflection stared back. "I have nothing to offer but myself," he said. "No throne, no army, no great name. But I see her, I hear her, and if she lets me, I will stand beside her not as a trophy, but as a partner, always." Silence then, slowly. Some of the crowd began to nod. Even a few nobles lowered their heads. Elira watched, her heart full. Something was changing. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time in generations, a human had stepped into a space no one thought possible. Not with power. It's not with pride, but with truth. The sky above Vieira turned golden as the final trial came to an end. The soft hum of the mirror pool faded and Caleb stepped back, his voice still echoing in the minds of those who listened. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the wind stood still. "Princess." Alira stood in silence, her heart beating faster than it ever had before. Caleb's words were not grand. They weren't filled with promises of power or greatness. But they were real, honest, spoken from the kind of heart she had always longed to be understood by. The empress stood, her long robe brushing the ground. Her voice rose over the court. "The trials are complete. The voices have been heard. Now the council shall meet." The crowd murmured. Many eyes still looked at Caleb with doubt, some with wonder. Others with quiet respect. Caleb bowed and returned to his place. Alira watched him walk away, her fingers gently tightening around her robe. Everything felt heavy now. The eyes of her people, the weight of her name, expectations of an empire. Later, in the tall tower of the royal council, 12 members of the empire's highest order sat in a circle. The empress stood at the center. "The human," one counselor began, "has no noble blood." "No record of war," said another. "No legacy." "But he passed every trial," said a third. "Without trickery, without fear." "He offered no future alliance." "No gain for the empire," someone else added. "His loyalty to her." The empress raised her hand. Silence filled the room. "You speak of gain," she said softly, "but forget the heart of the trials. These tests were not made to find the strongest. They were created to find the truest," and he passed them. "But will the people accept it?" one elder asked. "Then let the people decide," the empress replied. "As our law allows, Illyra will speak her heart, and the people will vote." The council nodded slowly. It had been centuries since such a thing happened. But the law was clear. The next day, banners were hung all across the city. The plaza, a voices in open field that could hold thousands, was prepared for the royal speech. Citizens from every corner of Veara arrived. Ships filled the skies. The galaxy watched. News screens glowed. Everyone waited to see if the quiet princess would truly choose the human over a line of proud suitors. Caleb stood in the waiting chamber below the plaza. He wore a simple robe, his hands resting on his knees. He wasn't nervous, just quiet. He had said all he could. Choice was not his anymore. The door opened. A guard nodded. "It's time." Caleb stepped out into the light. Gasps filled the crowd as he walked up to the side of the stage. He didn't look like a warrior, didn't walk like a prince, but he stood tall, steady, and calm. Then Princess Illyra appeared. The crowd grew quiet. She stood at the center of the platform, her soft gown flowing like light, her silver blue skin glowing under the twin suns. Her voice rose, not loud, but clear. "My people," she began, "for many years I have been silent. I followed duty, followed expectations, and in doing so, I became invisible, even to myself." The crowd listened, frozen, the suitors. "Came," she said. "They spoke of power, of strength, of conquest, but only one came forward with no promise except truth. Only one looked at me not as a prize, but as a person." Her eyes turned to Caleb. "He has no crown, no grand title, but he has something greater. He has heart." A long silence followed. "And so," Illyra said, her voice now softer, "I ask not for approval, but for understanding. Let me choose not for the Empire, but for myself. And if you trust my heart, stand with me." Then she stepped beside Caleb and reached for his hand. Gently, calmly, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The plaza was silent. Not even a whisper moved, then dashed slowly. Like ripples in water, one person clapped. Another stood, then another. A wave of voices rose. Not loud cheers, but something stronger. Acceptance. Some cried, some smiled. Some bowed their heads in respect. Vote was clear. People had spoken. That night, the Empress called Illyra into her private chambers. "You have done something that hasn't been done in generations," she said. Illyra stood with quiet strength. "I didn't plan it. I only followed what felt right." The Empress gave a rare smile. "And may your future be built, not on tradition, but on truth." The next day, in a simple ceremony held in the moonlight garden, Illyra and Caleb stood together under the crystal trees. There were no gold thrones, no war banners, just family, close friends, and a sky full of stars. Caleb looked into her eyes. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes. You saw me when no one else did, and now the whole galaxy finally sees you too." Their hands met. No crown was exchanged, only a promise. And with that, the story of a quiet princess and a humble human became more than just a whisper. It became a legacy. After the ceremony in the moonlight garden, life in the Empire of Veara began to change. The quiet princess, now linked with a human named Caleb, became the center of many conversations. Some spoke with hope, others with doubt, but all eyes watched carefully. Illyra and Caleb spent their days together, learning from each other. He taught her stories from Earth about kindness, family, and courage. She showed him the wisdom of her people, their history, and the delicate balance of ruling an empire, but not everyone was happy. In the shadows of the palace, whispers grew louder. Some nobles felt threatened. They had lost their chance at power, and many were not ready to accept a human as part of the royal family. One night, As the twin moons rose high, a secret meeting took place in a hidden chamber beneath the palace. "This human is a threat to our traditions," hissed Lord Varnick, a powerful noble with sharp eyes and a cold voice. "He is weak, yes," said another, "but he has the princess's heart. That makes him dangerous. And we must act," Varnick said, his voice low. "If we do not, the empire will crumble." They planned to test Caleb and Illyra to find a way to break their bond. Meanwhile, Illyra and Caleb were unaware of the brewing storm. They continued their quiet days, walking in the palace gardens, talking under the stars. Caleb loved the soft glow of Veoran plants, the gentle hum of the palace walls, and the feeling of peace he found only with Illyra. One afternoon, as they sat by the floating lake, Illyra asked, "Do you ever feel afraid?" Caleb looked at the calm water. "Sometimes, but fear is part of being alive. What matters is what we do with it." She smiled. "You make fear seem small, only because you are brave," he said. Their hands met, warm and sure. But their peace was short-lived. The very next day, Caleb was summoned to the council chamber. The nobles sat waiting, their faces cold and unreadable. "Human," the empress said, "there are questions about your loyalty." Caleb stood firm. "I have pledged myself to the princess and the empire. Yet some believe you are a spy, a counselor accused, sent to weaken us from within." Caleb shook his head. "I am here by choice. My only mission is to stand with Illyra." The room buzzed with whispers. The empress raised her hand. "A test shall be set. If Caleb proves his loyalty, he will remain." Caleb nodded, ready for whatever was asked. The test was clear. Caleb had to lead a small fleet on a peaceful mission to a disputed planet near Vera. The mission was simple: deliver supplies and build trust with the local people. But enemies watched. A group of rebels opposed to the empire tried to ambush the fleet. Caleb knew the risks, but did not panic. He ordered his ships to form a protective shield around the supply vessels. Instead of fighting back with weapons, he used smart tactics, slow movements, careful communication, surprise maneuvers. His fleet avoided the trap and completed the mission safely. News of his success spread quickly. Some nobles still doubted, but many began to respect his calm strength. Back at the palace, Illyra waited anxiously. When Caleb returned, she ran to greet him. "You did it," she said, relief in her voice. "We did it," he replied, smiling. They held each other close. For a moment, the troubles of the empire felt far away, but the secret meeting in the shadows was not finished. Lord Varnick and his followers sent a message to the empress. They warned of a plan to challenge Illyra's claim to the throne and separate her from Caleb. The empress was troubled. She called Illyra and Caleb to her chamber. "Our empire is strong," she said, "but it is not without enemies. You must be prepared." Illyra nodded, her eyes steady. Caleb took her hand. "We face it together." In the days that followed, Illyra and Caleb trained with the royal guard, not with swords or weapons, but with patience, trust, and strategy. Caleb learned the art of Veoran diplomacy. Illyra practiced speaking with confidence before large crowds. They grew stronger, not because of power, but because they stood united. One evening, as they watched the twin suns set, Illyra whispered, "The empire may try to break us, but they cannot break what is true." Caleb squeezed her hand. "Our bond is stronger than fear." And in the quiet glow of the fading light, two hearts promised to face whatever came side by side. The day had come. The empire was watching. The galaxy was waiting. Princess Illyra and Caleb stood side by side on the grand balcony of the palace, overlooking the city of Vera. Below, thousands had gathered to hear what would become a new chapter in their history, as heart was calm but full. Beside her, Caleb's hand was steady and warm. Together, they represented something new, a bridge between worlds. The Empress stood behind them. She had watched them grow, seen the strength born from their trust, and knew that the future depended on courage not only of swords, but of hearts. Elira stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the city. Today, she began, we stand at the edge of change. For too long, traditions have ruled us. For too long, fear has kept us apart. She looked at Caleb and smiled. This human came to my world not seeking power or glory. He came with kindness, patience, and truth. He saw me not as a prize, but as a person. And in that, he showed me what true strength means. Crowd listened, some nodding, others silent. Our empire is vast and full of wonders. It can be strong only if we open our hearts to what is different. It can be wise only if we learn from each other. And it can be great only if we choose love over fear. Caleb stepped forward next. I am a stranger in this world, he said, but I have found a home. Not in buildings or titles, but in thee. People who showed me kindness. I pledge to stand beside Princess Elirant as a conqueror, but as a partner. Together, we will build a future where all voices are heard and all hearts are valued. The crowd erupted in cheers, lanterns lighting up the sky like stars reborn. But the story was not yet finished. From the shadows, Lord Varnick and his followers watched. They had lost their chance at power, but could not accept defeat. They made one final move, a challenge to the Empress's decision, a duel to prove who was worthy of the throne's influence. Elira accepted, not to fight for power, but to show the strength of her heart. The duel was set in the arena of Olda Place, where the past met the present. Varnick was fierce, skilled in combat and cunning. Elira was calm, her spirit shining brighter than any weapon. Caleb watched from the sidelines, his heart pounding. As the duel began, Varnick struck hard. Elira dodged and weaved, not with force, but with grace. Her moves were like water soft but unstoppable. When Varnick grew tired, Elira spoke. This fight is not about weapons, she said. It is about trust, courage, and the future we choose. A final move. Elira disarmed Varnick. The crowd gasped. Varnick fell to his knees, defeated but alive. Elira extended her hand. Rise, we are stronger together. Varnick looked into her eyes and saw something he had never known, mercy. The Empire changed that day. Elira and Caleb were no longer just princess and human. They were symbols of hope, unity, and a new way forward. Under their guidance, the galaxy began to heal old wounds, build new friendships, open doors long closed. Elira and Caleb walked often in the palace gardens, their hands entwined, their hearts bound. One evening, as stars twinkled above, Elira whispered, "We started." As to, but now we carry the dreams of many. Caleb smiled. And together, we will make those dreams real. The legacy of the young princess who was ignored by all alien suitors but chose a human became a story told for generations, a story of courage, love, and the power of seeing the true soul beneath the surface, a story that reminded everyone sometimes. The strongest ties come from the most unexpected places.